We are going to see how to create an integration using DynamoDB on Syndesis. To do this, first we have to create a connection of type DynamoDB. Here we have to introduce the credentials. The credentials are the ones provided by Amazon. And we also have to check the region and the table name. The region, there are many options, and you can find which region is your table defined in the Amazon console. As you can see, there are many options. And we also have to remember the name of the table and the name of the key. So we go back to the connection configuration, we enter the region, we enter the name of the table. As these are not valid credentials, I'm going to use a pre-generated connection with valid credentials, but it's exactly the same way of creating the connection. Now that we have the connection, we can already start with the integration. So we go to the integration tab and we create a connection. First, we are going to use a very simple trigger, which is the simple timer, which means it executes the integration once every minute. And for the end, we are just going to show the body output of all the whole integration. Now we can start adding the first step, which will be inserting an element on the DynamoDB table with the put item operation. Here we define the element with JSON. It's important that we define an ID using the key name attribute, which is the only required attribute for the table. And we can use any key that fits with the table schema. And then we can add any number of attributes we want, even if they are not previously defined on the table, because this is NoSQL. We are going to add two attributes, one to query and the other to not query later. It's important that here we create a valid JSON. And then we can add the second step, which will be query the same attribute we have just added. For querying the attribute, we can add the ID manually, or we can, instead of having to write the ID, we can change that and use variables. Variables are those values that start with this combination of keys. And then we say what attributes we want to query, which in this case will be clave and attribute 1. Attribute 2, we could add it here, but we are going to show that it's really choose only the attributes we are using. So now we need to map the variable we just defined on the query with some value that comes from the previous output, the previous step. And we are just going to add some logs in between steps to show exactly what is happening. After the first step, the step that inserts the element, the output will show the full element that has been just inserted. After the mapping, what the integration message is containing is the mapping of all the variables with the values. And of course, at the end, there is the final log that will show the query output. It will take some moments to start, maybe 1-2 minutes, depending on your machine. It automatically generates the OpenShift process to execute this integration. And you can have, if you later edit the integration, you will have this history of versioning, so you can go back to versions later. In this case, as we just created the integration, we only have one version. And once it builds and deploys, we will be able to see the output of the logs using the activity tag. It takes some moments to run the first time. And we can see the outputs of the logs, and we can see that the first element has 2 attributes, but we only query one of those, and that the key variable is properly set up by the data mapper. And this is how you do a DynamoDB integration.